everyone, thanks for tuning in to this episode. Just a quick heads up, this is a two-part episode. Today we're going to be talking about ice jams. Not only that, but why it's important to public safety and health to monitor them and keep track of them. We'll also be discussing high-vis cameras, sponsored by the Department of Natural Resources and partners, and how they help keep track of those icy situations.
Stay tuned. It's an explosive episode.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Around the Water Cooler with NEDNR. Today it's me, Devin, and
Alexa, hi.
Hi, and we have a couple special guests. Today we have Ryan and Jamie. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves and kind of give us the rundown of what you do for the agency?
I am Ryan Werner, and I am an IT applications developer lead in the IT division at DNR. I work on a lot of GIS applications, including the Ice Jam reporting application.
And I am Jamie Ranke. I am the team lead for the floodplain management section at DNR.
Hi guys.
Welcome.
So today we are going to do a special episode about ice jams.
Dun, dun, dun. So I actually looked up the definition of ice jams from NOAA's website, and it said that it's a topographic feature of a river where ice essentially can just accumulate and it can impede flow in the river, but it could also happen on like dams and bridges, and it happens because snow and ice just melts so rapidly in the spring. So it could happen anywhere, but mostly in the Midwest.
Yeah, that freezing and thawing kind of messes stuff up. So,
Why do we care? Well, maybe we should say that ice jams can reduce flow in streams and rivers, but they can also cause flooding, right? So if that water can't go anywhere downstream, it'll go horizontal. So that's why we care about ice jams, is because, I mean, it doesn't matter to the river's point of view if there's a house or a town or a bridge, that water's got to go somewhere.
yeah, it's a huge safety issue. Jamie, do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Sure. Floodplain, our involvement with ice jams is more periphery. We're not dealing with the day-to-day, but we are involved in the ice monitoring calls that happen every spring this time of year for the Lower Platte River and the Elkhorn Rivers. This year we got to add the Missouri River to those calls because we are having a rare ice jam on the Missouri River. That hasn't happened since the late 80s, so we're not used to talking about that. But every year we do talk about the Platte and Elkhorn Rivers because they are very prone to ice jamming, specifically in the North Bend area.
Why?
Due to the geometry of the Highway 79 bridge. That's actually the pinch point in that section of the river. Not that it's the only section of the river that sees ice jamming, but every year the Weather Service hosts those calls every Wednesday, and we sit and talk about the river conditions, look through the high-res photos that USGS has, that Ryan's group has now incorporated into our Ice Jam site. We attend the annual meeting to kind of kick off ice season 2. I wasn't able to attend this year, but Elijah Kaufman with our group went and met with Papio NRD and counties, municipalities that meet to talk about ice jamming early in the season so that we get ready for anything that's going to happen. The most recent example of ice jamming that we had a significant problem with was 2019, but there were a lot of things that came into play. It was not just ice jamming on the rivers that caused that event, but it was a contributing factor.
And also ice floating down the river, running into stuff, right?
Yeah, and we had ice jams on some rivers that we weren't used to seeing ice jams on too.
I have a couple questions for you. So you mentioned that people call in to report ice jams. Who typically does that? Can anybody do that?
So typically, if we get phone calls on ice jamming, we're going to direct them to either report it to the NRD or a local agency, or to work with someone to get it on the reporting site. Since we don't actually do measurements or anything like that, we typically are kind of passing that on, and Weather Service has kind of been the central hub for that type of reporting.
So anyone can just call in and say, hey, there's ice here. I see it.
It might be a jam.
Yeah, so Dave Pearson with Valley National Weather Service, he usually puts a shout out to everyone on the phone calls and lets them know to reach out to their office if
That's awesome.
anyone sees anything suspicious.
And then Dave is also part of the group that can go out and perform an ice jam report using our applications to go into the ice report database. And then once every week, or either weekly or bi-weekly, there's an ice jam report that gets sent out to all the constituents in the state that are part of that email group.
So what does the significance of getting the report mean?
It says here's a list of the ice jams that are currently. Actually, it gives a list of not just where ice jams are occurring, but where there's ice conditions. They can report on ice conditions and freezing without there technically being an ice jam.
Oh,
That's
so the
in
potential.
one part where they do select whether an ice jam is present or not, and then those reports go out.
Right, because just because there's ice on the river doesn't mean it's a jam.
Right.
So they often will go out and just measure how thick the ice is. They'll take some readings talking about what the condition of the ice looks like on the surface.
Air
Whether
temperature,
there's
wind speed.
Yep.
all
Whether
sorts of
there's
stuff.
open flow happening, because if you have water flowing, that's good. We like to see water flowing so that everything isn't just blocked up by the ice. But that report contains a lot of that type of information
And pictures.
and pictures.
So you said something about ice season. When do we typically start seeing conditions that are suitable for ice jams?
It kind of depends on the year because it's really dependent on the weather. This year, the ice on the Missouri River happened much earlier than we're used to seeing on the Platte or Elkhorn rivers. We started the ice calls on the Platte and Elkhorn, I want to say it's been within the last month. So it was
Yeah.
after the holidays.
Typically, the Platte and Elkhorn River group that reports do not report until the change of the year. They don't go until after January 1st. This year, the Missouri River conditions started very late in December, but that was prior to January.
But if everyone remembers, we had that Arctic air mass that kind of sat over us for a couple weeks in December that was unusual.
So, Jamie, you kind of hinted towards our webpage on ice jams. Ryan, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
The webpage?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can talk about the webpage. Our current Ice Jam webpage, which is under our Floodplain Division website, can be found at the bottom of the page with a link. I believe it's a snowflake, actually. It's the icon.
Snowflake.
You click on. There we've got a couple of different tabs. One is a link to the interactive map where you can view a web map that shows icons for all of the reports that have been submitted this year. You can also see all of the measurements that were taken and the pictures that were observed at that location. From there, you can create a Ice Jam report, which NEMA does. NEMA creates that report using a GeoCortex workflow that we've built. And then that PDF is actually saved under another tab on our website as well, where you can see the summaries for this year as well as all the previous years that they've been reported on. Those PDFs are all stored there. Then that PDF is also sent out like either weekly or bi-weekly, like I said, to whoever's on the email list.
So on the map that you have, it shows all of the reports of ice jam. So they all just stay there for the year, or
Yep.
what's the cycle like for that?
All of the items stay there for a year. They're all kind of coded so that the point location for that survey gets dropped on the exact same location every time, because there's preset locations along the river where they report at. Instead of seeing a bunch of points scattered all over if that person was in their vehicle or wherever they took the report, when they select that location from the drop down, it just drops it immediately or directly on top of the previous points. So when you click on it, it'll say like one of 15 reports or
Okay.
something. But the most recent one is always the one that shows up on top. So that's kind of the way that it's been set up. There's also the high-vis gauge cameras that Jamie talked about. There's icons for those in the map as well. So you can click on a few of those sites and see the live conditions on the river.
That's really cool.
There's also a filter widget in the application. So if you only want the map to show the ones for the last week or 2 weeks, you can set that filter to only show that data as well.
That's really cool.
And when you create the report, you can set a custom filter range to show reports for all time or
Yeah, exactly what you want to see for whatever you're looking for. Yeah, if you haven't checked that out, definitely do that. It's really interesting just to see like where the hot spots are.
There are plenty of links there to documentation about ice jams. If people want to go to our page and read up on ice jams, there's all sorts of information from the National Weather Service on our page.
Awesome.
Okay, well, thanks everyone for listening, and I think
Break time's over.
break time's over. Bye. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Around the Water Cooler with NEDNR. Today it's me, Devin, and
Alexa, hi.
hi, and today we have a special guest, John Winkler. Do you want to just introduce yourself and then talk a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me first. And my name is John Winkler. I'm the general manager of the Papio Missouri River Natural Resource District here in Omaha. I've been with the district for roughly 17 years now. And obviously, flood control is a huge issue for this part of the state. And we're a little bit unique. We have the largest metropolitan area in the state here in Omaha. But then also our district goes all the way up to South Sioux City, so we have some rural issues to deal with too. So we're a little bit unique from our sister agencies in that we've got obviously the large urban concentration, but then also we deal with the rural issues. So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for being on with us. So today we're going to talk about
The HIVIS, I had to actually write down what it stood for. So I was like, wait a minute, what? So it's hydraulic imagery or hydrologic imagery visualization and information systems. So it's a kind of a byproduct or an attachment to the USGS stream gauge systems where they have webcams that are installed to allow for the remote visibility of water, environmental conditions on certain locations in Nebraska. So what we were told is that the department has like co-sponsored some of these HIVIS stations that are throughout Nebraska. A lot of them are on the eastern side of the state, on the Elkhorn, the Platte, and pretty close to your NRD. So for somebody who doesn't know what maybe a stream gauge system is or the HIVIS system, why is this important? Like, why should people care about this?
Right. So this is a game changer for us. Obviously, during the winter, the Platte River is extremely susceptible to ice jam flooding. And so we spend a considerable amount of time and resources during the winter monitoring the Platte. We work with all of our partners like the National Weather Service, USGS, the other NRDs in our district, and county emergency management folks. And so previous to this system, we would spend a lot of staff time and resources visually inspecting the Platte River as far as when ice begins to move, when it begins to break up. This system, adding the cameras to the gauge data, we can visually just sit either in our office or on our phone, and we can visually see what the river is doing. This not only saves a tremendous amount of time and resources for staff, but also gives us up-to-date information as far as if we see something unusual on the camera or activity, and then we see the sequential gauge information, seeing river heights rise or fall or whatever that may be, then we can act. And so we can act more quickly. What's great about this is we've got a lot of folks in the public that they watch this maybe more than we do. So they're reporting things or they're sending emails or communications to us. One of our directors, he watches these things 24/7. He's retired. It's just what he loves to do. He loves the river.
Instead of the news, he's just like watching
Yeah,
the HIVIS.
yeah. And he lives along the river, and that's just what, he's always done. And so he just loves these things. And, but so it's just constant real-time data. And not only during the winter, but then also during the spring and summer flood season. We can see if there's high rainfall events up in the loop in the upper Elkhorns, we can visually see, hey, and get that on the gauge too, that, there's some high water coming our way. So it's a fantastic system. And the technology is only getting better. The cameras are only getting more high resolution. And we love them. We're going to add as many as we can. We love them in the Platte and the Elkhorn. And so I could see these being used. I see them being used more extensively throughout the state as time goes on.
Yeah, it sounds like a way safer alternative to having people out in the field constantly to inspect these kinds of scenarios. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, so during the flood of 19, we had some folks that were on levee systems that were being compromised as they were driving away. With this, with these camera systems, we can keep people out of harm's way, and we can visually see it, like I said, from the safety of our vehicle or safety from your office or whatever that may be. So, like I said, it's a huge game changer for us. It's like a big intelligence gathering system, right? We can we can see all these different locations as it goes downstream, and then so we can verify what we're seeing on gauges. And sometimes in the past, river gauges may have been inoperable or maybe feeding the wrong data. Now we can visually see, is this truly happening or not, without sending someone into the field to do it.
Yeah, well, some of those stream gauge locations can take like hours to get to. So, I mean, that would save so much time and labor with resources just to be able to look and be like, oh, there's everything's fine, or like, oh, there's a problem on our back end.
Right.
And didn't Jeremy mention that like sometimes when there's flooding events, some of their stream gauges that they have like embedded into wherever it may be like messed up and
Yeah,
drift
so this would
away
be
and-
like a way to double check
Right.
that.
yeah.
Right. So, like the 2019 flood, I think every stream gauge was damaged at some point because it was just such huge, and you had ice and huge volume
Yeah.
of water. Well, if you can visually get that, you can see that in fact what's happening without relying just solely on the gauge.
Yeah.
I remember, sitting up at 3 a.m. when it was flooding, looking at these gauges and looking at the data and not being visually able to see, and I'm like, I don't know if this is
You're like,
accurate
what
or
is
not. Yeah.
actually happening?
Yeah, and so is this really true or
Concerning.
not? And so now you can at least see. I can only see the technology getting better when you'll get better resolution at night and things like that. So which would help tremendously as well. But again, these have been a game changer for us, and USGS, this great partnership, DNR, and so this will help tremendously.
So, Deb and I were talking, and maybe you don't know this or not, but so these cameras, are they solar panel operated? Are they battery operated?
Yeah, so I think they're both. But most of the majority of them are solar, as far as I can tell. There's some issues too with when it snows and there's snow removal because they're on the bridge,
Yeah.
and then the snow gets pushed up on the solar.
Do you have a guy that has to come out?
Yeah, so there's always, with any technology, there's
Yeah.
always how you get things bad. But USGS is just phenomenal as far as if we get a report that a camera hasn't been keeping up to date or not working, it's simply a call or an email, and they send somebody out right away. So there's never a problem with maintenance or any downtime. I mean, and they've indicated that, hey, we're replacing some of these older units with newer technology, newer units, and it's only getting better.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've done a phenomenal job of maintaining them, and then, like I said, if there's any troubleshooting, they're on top of it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, just out of curiosity, I wonder if you've ever seen some really cool wildlife on the pictures, or like something crazy, like somebody like trying to paddleboard, or like, I don't know. I'm
Someone
sure-
checking out the camera, like what's going on here?
There is, so you see people airboat. I mean, you see, whatever. You see birds flying by. I mean, I just at that particular moment in time. One thing I like about this system is you can time lapse the pictures and then create basically a video.
Ooh,
That is
would
really
be
cool.
So you can go back and just say, hey, what's occurred over the last 24 hours? And then you can time lapse that all the way to the current picture. So you can see whatever happened at that particular point in time.
Yeah,
really cool.
it'd be like the Platte River time lapse project,
yep.
but then you can
Exactly.
just double that with actual like stream gauge data. And then like thinking about the future, I mean, if you could have the visualization, that stream gauge data, that could go into a groundwater model, or if you have like any kind of other data, you can get the whole picture of that stream and what's happening.
Right. And I think people in general are visual. And so if you have that visual representation of why something has happened, it reinforces that even more. I mean, you can read it, but it's like, you can read data. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But if you actually see what's happening and tie those together, I think it's only going to get more use, more technical use. Like I said, more research type based things. We obviously are using it more practically as far as public safety.
Right.
And this is what's happening now. But I can only see it, like I said, getting more in depth and digging deeper into the technology. So
Yeah, we're pretty excited about them at the department. Hopefully they go, on every stream and river and major basin, because the usefulness of the information is just limitless.
right.
Like we've talked about flooding, but like think of how cool it would be to showcase like the severity of a drought. Like, if you don't know what the water levels look like typically with the Platte, and people are saying, oh, it's a drought, and they're like, yeah, I see a little bit of water in there. It looks fine to me. Like,
Right.
for stuff like that would be kind of cool too.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, so not only are we most concerned usually about flooding, but the drought aspect of that too. And I always tell everybody, I said, when it's flooding, prepare for a drought. And when it's drought, prepare for a flood.
Right.
Because you never one without the other usually.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, drought would be huge. Is what does that stream look like? And then when you start making decisions of what if you have to shut down irrigated acres or you have to get some other type of flows? I mean, what
Right.
does that system look like? So I think that's a great point.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I just thought of something kind of random. So Jamie Ranke, she's the division manager at floodplain at the department. She was saying something about in the past, you at the NRD may or may not have used alternative resources to help with ice jams, like
Explosives.
Dynamite?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I was like, where?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I was like
alternative
trying to,
source. I like that.
I'm
gonna
like
start
trying to like
using that.
tiptoe, like
Alternative sources. It's like, oh, what do we do? No, yeah. So, I mean, I can talk about it if you want, but
Yes.
Yes.
So the Platte River is a state. It's not under federal jurisdiction. Not a Title 10 river or Section 10 river, whatever. We have a little more leeway as far as local organizations to handle ice jams, and so we do have an explosives contractor that we have a contract with every year. They have a mobilization time frame, and so when we call them, they've got a certain amount of time to get here. And we have a helicopter vendor, and so we marry the two when we have to, and so we can deploy explosives. If, in fact, we need to do that to get a jam to break free. Now, we usually wait till the very last second
You don't
because
wanna
we want
just
Mother
pull out the
Nature. to-
dynamite
Yeah, we just don't.
Happy Friday, let's go.
I mean, I think there's some misconception that they just wait so they can do this. It's not that fun. It's
Yeah.
expensive. It's kind of cool for about 5 minutes, and then it's like,
All right, this is
right?
stressful.
Yeah, well, I'm
and
sure
so
there's a
it's-
lot of liability
yeah,
and pros and cons you have to
Right.
weigh
Oh,
before you
yeah.
can just jump
well,
on
you
it.
have to. So you have to do seismic studies, so you're not blowing out windows. Obviously you want to protect the habitat as much as possible,
Right.
species and things like that. So this isn't something you take lightly.
Yeah.
To do, and so like I said, but it is an option. And just to put this to bed, we've had requests to say, well, we have an Air Force base. Why don't the military does not blow up river ice. So
They
we
might.
won't ask, they don't do it. So get that out of everybody's head. It's not an option. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah, there you go. So we've had that quote many of time. They're like, nah, no, they don't do that.
Well, thank you for asking that question, and thank you for answering.
Oh,
'Cause
sure.
that was in our
I'm
minds. We're
glad
like,
because I like to get that that misinformation out there. That these guys just like to blow stuff out of stuff.
Yeah, Jamie said it, and I was like what?
I love that alternative means. I'm going to use that alternative means. That's great.
So, you've talked about the technology improving. Do you have any set plans to use HiViz for different things in the
Or
future?
like set
or
stream stations
Yeah.
that you want to try and expand it to that you're actively working on, or is it just something that it's going to happen in the future? We want to expand this network. We haven't narrowed down what's the next place for
Right. So I think we'll continue to expand the network. I can see us using it on the Papillion Creek system too, kind of in the urban area. I know that, we had them on the Platte at first, and then we kind of moved to the Elkhorn. But I can see us expanding that reach and getting it further up into the loops and things like that, further up into the Elkhorn basins. And we want to work with our partners like Lower Elkhorn and Upper Elkhorn and those agencies to try to partner. We partner with Lower Platte South, Lower Platte North, and others to get the current system. So obviously, the more you can spread around the cost, and so it's less resources for everybody to throw in there. But yeah, I can only see it expanding. We don't have any concrete plans right now, but I've already some of my directors that are very interested in using it are already saying we need to move it further down the Platte, and we need to move it up. Yeah. So it
Let's
will
keep it
only
going,
expand for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and I can see it only expanding in the state. If you look on the map, the national map of the HIVS system,
Yeah, there are
you can see
spots
there
everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of states are everywhere. And
Yeah.
Nebraska really didn't have any, and then all of a sudden we got I think we got
10.
10 now.
Yeah.
I can only see it getting bigger.
That's
Yeah.
really exciting. Besides the dynamite, what is the one takeaway you'd want someone to get from this interview?
That there's people out there watching all the time on it, especially just us and DNR in general is if it's not drought, if it's floods, if it, and there are people that are always vigilant in protecting the public. We're always vigilant in making sure that our natural resources are protected. I kind of like the idea of when people take it for granted because it means we're doing our job. If you can turn on your faucet and your water's running, and if you turn on your lights and you have this beautiful natural scenery, and that's what I like, because it means, hey, we're all doing what we're supposed to do. And then again, everybody has to be aware. And we always say, not just during emergencies, but always just be aware of if you're on the river, just recreating or whatever, because something could be happening upstream that may impact. And so it's just that situational awareness to be always vigilant, even if it's the river's frozen or if it's flooding. You just always have to understand where you're at, what's going on. So, but we love the partnership we have with DNR and the Corps and everybody. We think it's a great group. NEMA, EPA. I mean, it's just. I think we have a lot of dedicated professionals. Always not easy answers, especially when you're talking about spending money. But I just think that, especially in Nebraska, when we go back to Washington, D.C. and talk to either congressional folks or federal agencies, and we say how our system and how we cooperate and share resources, they literally hold us out as an example to other parts of the country. And so I think that's a kind of a feather in our cap, be able to highlight that we really do things right here.
Yeah, we do. I feel like we're the best.
Yeah.
I'm not biased or anything.
No, I'm not either, but no, it's federal agencies are making, they might not even been in Nebraska. And so when you ask them for something and you say, hey, we'd like to partner, and they look at you like, well, you don't want us to pay for it all? They're like, no, we have.
You're like, yes, but.
Yeah, well, yes, but we know you won't. But yeah, so we just want you to partner, and we want to do the work. We don't want you to do it. We want to do this ourselves. We just would like the capital to move it along or whatever. And they're kind of stunned, and they go, we never get people to say, will you help us? It's like, will you do this for us? Right? And so I think that's a great strength in Nebraska, because waiting for the federal government, I love them, but it's a very long time and it's a very expensive and long process. So
And we have so many experts here. So
we do.
We have the best of the best already.
And if they need to blow up river ice,
You're our guy. All right.
not perpetuating the stereotype, right?
All right, John. We have a contact.
So yeah,
man.
so
Awesome.
that's it though. So.
Well, thanks so much for talking with us, John. And if anybody has any questions or wants to get in contact, what's the best way of getting a hold of you or anybody here at your NRD?
Sure, they can go to our website at www.papionrd.org, or they can email me, jwinkler@papionrd.org anytime. So we really pride ourselves on getting back to folks. We might not have the answer immediately, but we will let them know, hey, we received your communication. If it's a phone call, email, whatever, text, we received it and we're working on it and we'll get you the answer. So if they get a hold of us, they will get an answer. Not necessarily I can guarantee they'll like the answer, but they will get an answer. So, but I really appreciate the time, and this was great. It was fun.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having us and sitting in and talking with us. I think break time's over.
Yeah, break time's over. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.